Let's start. Let's continue, okay? I'm beginning with a story. I'm starting with a story which will make the point about the mun. This is a story which has a number of versions. They're all very similar. In other words, the critical points of the story are constant. The differences are nuances, little aspects of the story. And the story is that at the same time that Arizal lived in Sfas, the Beis Yosef lived in Sfas. Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Beis Yosef also lived in Sfas. And the Beis Yosef, as you know, has written what can be said are the most important Sfarim over the last 500 years. Till Mashiach comes, the Beis Yosef Sfarim are incredibly important. The Beis Yosef wrote a commentary on the Tur Shulchan Aruch, which is called Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef also wrote a Shulchan Aruch of his own, which we identify as Mechaber or Maron, depending if you're a Sfardi or an Ashkenazi. And then he wrote a complete commentary on the Rambam, which is called Kesef Mishnah. And then there are other Sfarim of the Beis Yosef. He was an incredibly prolific writer of real Torah, the Beis Yosef, the Beis of Karo. One of the greatest Gedolim in the history of the world, one of the most important contributors to Halacha, really. The Shulchan Aruch that we have is the Beis Yosef Shulchan Aruch. So the story was that the Beis Yosef was learning Torah. You understand? You have a mind like that. He was learning Torah. And he was finding a particular passage. I don't know what it was. He was finding a piece of Torah, a shtickele Torah, a Gemara, one of the Rishonim, I don't know what, incredibly hard. He was having a very difficult time getting through it. He wasn't a lazy man. And he sat on it. He studied it. He analyzed it. He doubted it. He questioned it. He reconsidered it. And after a few days, he achieved some kind of clarity. He had a clarity about this idea. When he achieved this clarity, he felt very good. And to use a cliche, he was Mechadesh a Chiddush. He created a new piece of Torah. In other words, the question that had been bothering him was all-consuming. He found a difficulty, he found a hardship in the Torah, and finding resolution was creating a new insight into the Torah which helped resolve his issue. Right. A little while after, this same Beis Yosef, the Beis of Karo, walks into a shtibel, walks into a Beis HaMedrash, and he sees a bunch of people learning. And one of the people was reading and translating, teaching it. What were they learning? They were learning the same subject, the same topic that he had struggled with so much days earlier. So he was curious how they would deal with it, because he knew there's a great hardship here, it's a great kasha, that there's a deep teretz. So he sat down on a bench or a chair to listen into the Magachia, to the teacher teach. The teacher taught, the teacher read it, the teacher explained it, and the teacher went through that hardship that he had like as if it wasn't there. And explained it the way the Beis Yosef had explained it after 3 or 4 days of toil. In other words, a simple Yid had come to a conclusion, understanding an idea of Torah, that it took a mind like the Beis of Karo's days to figure out. He was so disappointed. He was so depressed. He was convinced that this is a punishment. He was convinced that this is an einish min hashamayim. He was convinced that the fact that a simple person was able to understand something that he was not able to understand has to be a punishment. He must have done some kind of an aveira, and because of some kind of a wrong that he'd committed, his mind was closed to Torah, and that's why something so obvious had taken him so hard. He figured that really what he had struggled with wasn't difficult, but he was being punished. So he went to his Rebbe, and according to one version of his story, his Rebbe was a Magid. A Magid means a neshama that came from the other world into this world to teach the Beis Yosef. Beis Yosef has actually a book, I have it on my shelf here, which is called Magid Meishorim. Magid Meishorim, it's a book of Torah written in Aramaic with actual dates. Beis Yosef has dates in which he tells this story how he worked so hard on a particular idea of Torah, and after many days or many hours it came to him, and then a simple Yid learned it and understood it without any effort, and how terrible he felt, and he came to his Maggid and said to his Maggid, I must have done an Aveda. And because I did an Aveda, my mind is closed to Torah. And therefore I have to work so hard to be Mechavan Lameitasa Shel Torah, and a simple Jew got it like this, like in a snap. So the Maggid said to him, no, that's not the case. You didn't do any Avedas, and your mind is not close to Torah, and you have nothing to do tshuva for, nor vajaden. The Maggid told him like this. This idea of Torah, no one ever understood, ever. Since Moshe Rabbeinu, Torah is an evolution. It's a process that continues. Nobody has ever resolved this problem until you. When you sat down to analyze it, this was an area of Torah that nobody had successfully resolved. And you, through your incredibly hard work, found resolution. And by finding resolution, you brought this idea of Torah into this world. And you can say it in two ways. One way to say it is you brought it from the level of klal to the level of prat, from the level where it was part of the general Torah into a specific thought. Or in other words, and in deeper words, you brought it from the level of oyer to the level of seichel, from the level of godliness to the level of human intellect. No one understood it until you did. And you created it. And this piece of Torah is yours. You know, you heard the expression Chidushei Torah, Chidish. True students of Torah are Mechadash Chidish. They create new ideas in Torah. And the new ideas in Torah that they create are theirs. Which is why it says in the Chazal that when you say Torah, in the name of a Gadol B'Yisrael that came before, they learn it with you. Sifsaisav Daivevois Bakaved, the lips of the deceased Chocham, who understood these ideas, learns it with you and repeats it with you, because the Torah is his. The whole Torah is the Eibishter's. But the Eibishter gave us the Torah in such a way that it has to be brought down, like I said, from the klal level to the prat level, from the oil level, from the intellectual, from the godly level to the seichel level, to the intellectual level. And a person who's zoiche to take one idea of Torah and bring it from the higher level to the lower level, that piece of Torah is his. It's his forever. It's called a chiddush. It's new. It's not new in the sense that it wasn't given by the Eibishter. It's new in the sense that you brought it down from a higher level to a lower level. And this chiddush of Torah is yours at Seif Kodesh. It's your piece of Torah. It belongs to you. Like it says in the first Kapitel Tillim, the first Psalm. It says when a person learns Torah in the beginning, it says, B'seiras Hashem Yehege. You learn God's Torah. Then it says, B'seirosei Hashem Chefze. You desire Hashem's Torah. And then it says, B'seirosei Yehege Bo Yoim Avaloi. Then your own Torah you work day and night. The Shaila is which is it? The Eibishter's Torah, or is it mine? So the Gemara says, in the beginning you're learning God's Torah, because He gave it and you're studying it. And then it becomes your own. Nekras al Shmoi. When you're Mechadish, you invent a new idea, and Torah belongs to you. And then the Maggid said to the Beis Yosef, once somebody is Mechadish, Achidish, and Torah, and brings this idea of Torah into the world, it's available for anybody to learn. And he told him, you walked into a shtibel, to Besmedrish, and you saw a Yid learning Torah, and he explained this passage the way you understood it after days of work. Don't you understand that he understood it because of your days of work? If you hadn't worked, it would have remained shosum, it would remain sealed and closed and not understandable. And there's no way you could have been able to understand it. You created it. And in your creation, it's yours. This is the story with the Beis Yosef and the and his Maggid. Okay? Now, what's my point? That when the Eibishter gave us the Torah thousands of years ago, none of the Torah was understood. All of the Torah existed here and not here. All the Torah was on a klal level, not on a prat level, on a oyer godly level, not on a seichel intellectual level. All the Torah that you and I learn, and we don't only do it, but we're able to understand it, is because someone created it. Someone came before us questioned this passage and did not understand and worked very, very, very hard to invent the logic which allows us to understand that idea. And it's cumulative, it's collected. Over thousands of years of learning, there are innumerable Chiddushei Torah that have been piled on, collected and collected and collected to the Gedolei Yisrael that came before us, what the Rebbe calls Talmud Vosek Osed L'Chadish, and the Torah that we're learning is theirs. The first group of people to do this was the Jews in the Midbar. What did the Yidden do in the Midbar all day and all night? 40 years in the desert. They didn't have to work for a living. Bread came to their doorstep. Water used to, stream through the camp in little creeks. Their clothes, at night they'd put their clothes into the cloud. In the morning they would be fresh, clean. And if you grew, your clothing grew with you. So they do all day long. They study Torah. And that's the meaning of this Maimon Chazal. The Torah was given to the generation of Jews who ate manna and drank the water from the well of Miriam and Nevi'im. And the result of this was that they had the koyach, by eating man, to be able to create Torah. Because to create Torah, you have to have a very special koyach that comes from the Eibishter. And this special koyach came to that generation of Jews from the Eibishter through the man that they ate and the water that they drank and so on. Okay, so this is the idea of the man. It's one of the ideas of the man. I said to you before, the man is a miraculous food or a godly food. This is one of the ideas of the man. Now another idea of the man. Another idea of the man. The way God created his world, and this I remember talking to you about, I'm repeating myself. The way God created this world, everything in this world needs reparation. Everything has to be fixed. Hashem made a world and it needs to be corrected. Everything in the Eibishter's world needs fixing. As good as it is, it needs to be fixed to be better. For example, food. You eat food, you digest it. The digestion process is taking the food apart, reconstructing it in a way that it gives you energy and it gives you the compounds that you need, and whatever the body doesn't need, whatever that's good for the body disposes of. Yeah? So you're eating food. The food is not going to automatically provide you with what you need. It needs to be birur, right? We call the word elevating sparks. Yeah, separate and good from bad. This is true in the digestive process. If you eat food, you have to break it down and eat it. Yeah? But there's earlier steps of that. Before you can put the food in your mouth, you have to prepare it. Preparing it means it has to grow. You plant a seed, it grows, it takes time. And then after it grows, you have to harvest it. Some foods you can eat raw, and some foods you have to cook. And some foods it's not enough to cook, you have to prepare them, you have to grind them, you have to knead them, you have to mix them, you have to do all kinds of things. So everything in the world that the Eibishter gave us, we use after a process of correction. We refine it, we separate the good from the bad we throw in the garbage, the good we incorporate, and then we elevate it, and so on. The exception was the man. The man came from heaven to earth, ABB, already been birud. The man landed on the world, there was nothing to do, just collect it. You didn't have to cook it, or bake it, or clean it, anything. You ingested it, and the Chazal say it was nivla be'avodim, it went straight into the bloodstream, it went straight into your limbs. The man had no waste. The pasuk says the man was called lechem hakleikil. The man had no waste. None of it went to there was nothing, no part of it that was not good. And the man wasn't really digested. It went straight into your bloodstream, straight into your body, into where your body needed it. Because the man was a godly food. The Eibishter gave Yidden man in the Midbar for 40 years. They ate God food, special food. They were in a very, very special time. As I always tell you the expression, they were living in a cloud, literally and figuratively. That's what they're doing. They're living in a cloud, literally and figuratively. And under those conditions, the Eibishter gave them godly food so that they could be the godly people who could interpret the Torah. So now, before you ask a question, I think you would agree that you can understand their hesitation to go into Israel. I think you could agree that you can understand their hesitation to go into Eretz Yisrael and becoming farmers. It's a nice life, a farmer, huh? You're close to nature. Everything's real. But they lived in a different real. They lived in the Eibishter's world. They ate God food, involved in a God Torah, and they became a God-like people. Why would they want to leave that and become farmers? Why? There's only one answer. What's the answer? Because what the Eibishter said. And they were not so thrilled with the idea. They loved staying in the Midbar. And by the way, when the Eibusher said that this is what they're supposed to do, the Eibusher wasn't saying this is what they're supposed to do and they have to like it. This is what the Eibusher said they're supposed to do, and therefore they have to do whether they like it or not. So you could explain why they had such a hard time with it. Or to continue this thought that I started in the beginning of the class. But what was the first thing the Jewish people did? What's the answer? They complained. They complained. The Eibush is going to Yisrael. What they do, they complained. Watch, we're going to Yisrael. Life's good here. Right? Now, let's go back to the beginning of the class. I explained to you that there's two concepts of freedom. Or I divided freedom into two concepts. The psychological concept and then the religious concept. You want to be free? Serve Hashem. You want to be free? Go out of the desert where you're eating mun, drinking water from the well of Miriam, learning the Torah, creating the Torah, and become a farmer in the south of Eretz Yisrael, which is a desert. Yippee! That's freedom. Now, what kind of sense does that make? What kind of sense does that make? Huh? I'm asking you a question. It stretches you. Right? The Eibishter is forcing people, the Eibishter is forcing his world to bring together extreme opposites. The holiest of the holy, the most mundane of the mundane. When a person successfully brings together the holiest of the holy and the mundane of the mundane in their life, they're the biggest. If a person either lives a mundane life or lives a holy life, now you look at these two people and say this is a big tzaddik and this is a big nobody. But from a spiritual perspective, both of them are living in a box. That's not freedom. The freedom is the ability to expand. And that's what the Torah gives. The Torah doesn't necessarily give us that freedom by telling us what we want to hear. The Torah gives us this freedom by telling us what we must do in order to stretch ourselves and become free, even if we don't agree. Even if right now it seems to us that it doesn't make any sense. And that's the story of the Torah, and again, to be more specific, that's the story of the Mun. Okay? Questions or comments? L'chaim again.
Hi, I have a question.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you been in my class before, or this is your first appearance?
This is my first appearance, but I'm close with Boralea from Chabad House Bowery.
Oh, you're Adina.
Yeah.
Are you the famous Adina, or you're Adina number 2 or 3?
I'd like to think I'm 2 or 3, but I think you're referring to the song that with your kids.
I don't know. Whatever. Anyway, hello. Nice to have you.
Hi.
Only tell Boralea nice things about me, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So does that mean that Man wouldn't have been Klipat Noga?
The Man was Kedusha. The Man
Wow.
was godliness. They were not eating food in the conventional sense. It wasn't from earth, it was from heaven. It didn't only technically come from heaven, it was heaven food. It didn't have physical properties. Everything about the Man was supernatural. Everything about it. You know what used to happen in the morning? You got up in the morning, went to collect mun, yeah? I had a school teacher who was very dramatic. He says one guy went out with a teaspoon. And the other guy went out with an 18-wheeler truck. One person fills up his teaspoon, the other one fills up his 18-wheeler truck, and then they went home. They each had the same amount of mun. You got an asira se'ef, you got an oimer, which is, by the way, an awful lot of food. Did you ever make challah and make a bracha on it? It's like 5 pounds of wheat and all the rest of the stuff, yeah? That's how much mun they ate in a day. But it was, I guess it was, it was more volume than mass. Asira se'efa, the shear of challah, we learn from this. 1/10 of an ephah is 43 1/5 eggs. If an egg is 2 ounces, that's like 86 ounces of food. It's not a lot of food. But I guess they ate volume. Yeah, it was completely supernatural. Everything about it was a miracle. And it opened up their mind to Torah. Now, why would you want to give that up and become a farmer? Because God said, that's exciting. The Eibusher Geis. You follow? Okay, anybody else?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, God bless you. Now, there's another part to the story. Now, there's, of course... Oh, wait, I want to say something else. What we did in the last few classes, for those of you who remember, we talked about Shabbos a lot. Remember? There was a huge interface of Shabbos and Mon. Shabbos was a big deal. Because according to the Chazal, the bracha of the Mon came from Shabbos, but on Shabbos the Mon didn't fall. We got Friday a double portion. Mishnah, Lecha Mishnah. The bracha of the Mon came from Shabbos, but on Shabbos itself the Mon didn't fall. And there's a very strong similarity between the concept of the Mon and the concept of Shabbos. I don't know if you remember how we talked about this. Shabbos is a part of the world. It's in nature. It's the seventh day of the week. And it's a concept of rest. It's a concept of being in the world and being higher than the world. And one of the arguments that the Rebbe made in the last Sicha is that Shabbos and Mon have to share two characteristics. On the one hand, it represents being removed from the world. And on the other hand, it only happens through work. The Rebbe made this point, that the Mon and Shabbos share these characteristics. So one of the issues which has dominated our discourse for the last couple of weeks, in other words, last times we learned this, was this whole understanding of what Shabbos means. The idea of Shabbos. Shabbos means holy time. In the regular world, there's a special day. And on the one hand, it's a day like any other, and on the other hand, there's something about it which has something which is totally transcendent. And that there's a very, very strong link between Shabbos and Mon. So this is what's been happening. Okay, this is what's been going on. Now, girls, I want to do this. You all have access to the chat, as I presume, right? I don't know what I just did. I'm in trouble. If I go to the chat, I am free to upload something for you. So, I will now send you a Sicha. Okay? We have 20 minutes. Here we are. You should get a PDF. You should get a handout from me. The handout is very, very long. I want to finish today's class, which is really just a review, by reading this piece of Sicha. Tell me when you get it. Tell me when you get it.
We got it.
So I want you to open it up, and I want you to go all the way until page 168. 168 at the bottom. Okay? And I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes reading this with you very quickly. In other words, I want to teach you something. This is what I'm going to do. What I'm saying really is, next week, in Mitzvah Hashem, Wednesday, we'll have another class. I'm not continuing the Sicha. We're going to move on to something different. There's a lot of things for us to discuss. I'm stuck on Mon. I don't want to go away from the Mon, but I really think at this point we should go away from the Mon. The next subject is the Be'er Shemilya, the story with the well. So we'll see how that goes, okay? So the next 20 minutes we're going to be learning this. What is this about? That when the Jewish people ran out of food, right? I told you for 60 meals they ate charora. They ate this little bit of bread that they carried out of Egypt that didn't have a chance to rise, that baked on their shoulders. For 60 meals, 30 days, they ate this food. Then it expired. It was gone. So what the Jewish people do, take one wild guess, they complained. And they got two things. They got bread in the morning, mon in the morning, and meat at night in the form of slav, in the form of quail. It was a bird which is very fat, very tasty, very rich. Now, in Pashas Bahaloischa, which is a couple of weeks from now in Chitas, we're going to read a whole story. The Jewish people complained about the mon, and they got slav again. So apparently, there were two stages. When the Jewish people left Egypt, Hashem gave them bread and meat, bird, fowl, F-O-W-L, and it lasted for a while, and then it went away, and then the following year, they complained, and they got it back. Okay? Mon and slav. But in Parshas Bahaloischa, we read how the Jewish people complained they want food, and the Eibush gives them mon and slav. So the Rebbe is going to say a lot of things. It's a very long Sicha. You can see how long it is. And I'm just learning the end of the Sicha with you. One of the points that Rebbe makes is that in the Jewish people's complaining, there's two tones. In the Jewish people's complaining, there's two tones. Number one, doubt. Why do you complain? Because someone said, trust me, and then he disappoints you, and you get very upset, and you complain. Page 168 at the bottom. Rachel Chana. 168 at the bottom, okay? So on the one hand, the Jewish people's complaining is a lack of faith. On the other hand, their complaining was also an act of faith. If you don't win the lottery, you're not going to complain to me. Why not? Because I can't help you. The fact that the Jewish people complain to the Eibishter about food is a proof that it has some kind of a trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And both of these things play out here. The Jews complaining is a symptom, is a raya, that they have faith. And the Jews complaining is a symptom that they don't have faith. And the Rebbe analyzes the Psukim with the Rashi. It's a brilliant Sicha, where he shows how Moshe is on the one hand honoring the Jewish people's faith, and on the other hand, he's reprimanding the Jewish people's lack of faith. Okay, and part of the way it manifests is that the Eibush doesn't just give them bread, the Eibush gives them meat. And Rashi says they didn't need the meat. It was redundant, they didn't need it. The bread they needed. But the meat they didn't need. They didn't need the meat for several reasons. Number one, they had their own meat, their own animals. And number two, the man was enough. But the bottom line is that the Jewish people asked for bread and ended up with bread and meat. And Rashi says, the Chazal say, the bread, shalu kahoigen, the bread they asked for the right reasons, and the basar, shalu shaloi kahoigen, the meat they asked for the right reasons. That's why the bread they got at a time that they needed it in the morning, the meat they got at a time that they didn't need it in the evening, and a whole bunch of other factors that play into the story that demonstrate this idea that they didn't get the meat in an honorable way because they didn't really need it, but they did get the bread in an honorable way because they did need it. Now, after this long Sicha, the Rebbe spins it. He does a 180. We're starting from the very end of the Sicha, page 168 at the bottom, which is the Chassidus of the Sicha. I'm skipping the rest of the Sicha. And what the Rebbe does is he takes an idea which seems to represent one concept, and he does literally flips it 180 degrees. Based on what I just told you, bread good, meat bad, right? Mon correct, slav incorrect. The Rebbe is going to spin it. How? What's the difference between bread and meat in Kabbalah? What's the difference between bread and meat in Kabbalah, in Halach? Bread is a staple. You got to have bread. Meat is a food that you eat for pleasure, for joy. That's why the halach is that on Yom Tov you makayim simchas. Yom Tov ein simcha ela bebasar, ein simcha ela beyayin. The joy of Yom Tov is meat and wine. Now, I suspect that ein simcha ela bebasar doesn't mean chicken. It means like a meat, right? The chicken is not meat, even though it's fleishiks, but chicken is bird and meat is meat from a behema. And halachically, you're supposed to have basar, means psar behema, and Yom Tov you eat meat. And I'm not saying we do or many people do, but technically that's what it means. But certainly compared to bread, waterfowl, he says bird, slav, quail is like meat. So the Rebbe says bread is Torah. It nourishes us. Meat is pnimius ha-Torah. It pleasures us. So he does a 180. When you learn the story in the Chumash, the bread was asked for correctly. They really needed it and was given to them in an honorable way. The meat they didn't need. They were just fetching and complaining because they were nudnikis. So they got the meat, but they got it shaloi gehoigen, al pi chasidus. That's the other way around. The bread represents the lower level, and the meat represents the higher level. Okay? Now, if you have something to say, and I mean it, if you have something to say, please interrupt me now and talk to me. Otherwise, I'm going to read it inside. Okay. You good? Yeah, you're good or you're bad or you're... Okay, appreciate that, thank you. I ask my students in Beisivka sometimes when they ignore me, is there a yes or a no or a don't bother me? Okay. Von Yena shel Teira versus Merumas and then Pirish Rashi. There's a Chassidus behind this Rashi, and really, there's a Chassidus behind this entire story. Listen. Der Chiluk Tzvishin Lechem and Basar. The difference between bread and meat, and in this case, slav, quail. Bepnimius, according to Chassidus, is as follows. Lechem is Nigla the Teira, top of page 169 now. Bread means revealed Teira. Und Slav, was is min oif, Slav, which is the type of a bird, was is shamen me'ed, is very rich. Bechinas shemen, which is the idea of oil, shemen shebeteda, the fat of the teda, which is pnimiyas ateda, the inner dimension of the teda. Moreover, on dem gufa, and in Chassidus itself, it's a rozin, the rice. It's the secret of the secrets of the teda. Okay? Perfect. Und der Inyan von shemen, this idea of richness, wie it is in basa, as it is in meat, maint, as the rozin, the said that we're learning the secrets of the Torah, but kumen arap in an oifen von achila, come down to a level where you can actually eat it. What does that mean? Havana vasaga, to understand it. Was dan hotas atam and agishmak? When you understand it, that's when it's delightful, and that's when it's pleasureful. So the Eibush is giving us bread, which is Torah. He's giving us meat, which is rich, which is chassidus, pnimiyas Torah, but we're eating it, and we're processing it, and we're digesting it, so that the pnimiyas Torah also becomes part of our blood and flesh. Okay, now, I want you to skip to page 169, second column, yeah? Rachel Chana, you got to move here. There we go. Der mit wird men verstehen. You see what I'm reading? First full paragraph, second column. With this we'll understand. Die Chilukim zwischen Mon und Slav. The difference between Mon and Slav. Even though the Mon, even the way it came down into this world, it remained a substance. It's not so limited to time and space. Because of all the miracles that happened with the Mon. Skip the parenthesis, please. As it Mon was given in a measured way. Why was Mon given in a measured way? Because Mon represents Nigla of Taita. Nigla of Taita is measured. Please look at the next, the end of that paragraph. Dakegen, I actually read it from my computer. It's bigger than my page. Dakegen by Slav. On the other hand, this Slav, gefindt man nicht as es soll sein amida. You don't find a measure. Wie viel jeder, you can't tell how much each person took. The bread you took out, like I see my Lamed Rabbi Engels or Gesundheit. You come with an 18-wheeler truck and with one of those big machines. What do they call those things? A tractor. And you load up tons of money, you fill up the truck, you close the back door, you come home, you have an Asida Seifa. Finished. You took a spoon, you came home, you had an Asida Seifa. There's nothing you can do. So there was a measure. Slav had no measure. Why? Next paragraph. Nigla is a measure, it is defined by limitation. Und is move on. It's moving. It's understood. Even the higher level of Teda, was as melubish in Nigla. The way it comes into Nigla, was also limited. As opposed to a person who's learning the neshama of Teda, as it is by itself, is dod der beligvul shabateda. It's infinite. So the Rebbe says in Chumash, the difference between Mon and Slav was Mon was someone that they were entitled to, and Slav was someone they asked for that they didn't really deserve. In Hasidus, Mon is something that they needed, but it's only food, it keeps them alive. And Slav gives them pleasure, which goes on Pnimiyas HaTeira, which is an even higher level. Okay? Now turn to page 170. Okay, let's read Sifyat Beis. Page 170, Sifyat Beis. There we go. Okay. Of them sagt Rashi, the Jewish people have been given Mon, and the Jewish people have been given Slav, and the Mon represents Nigla of Torah, and the Slav represents Chassidus. Says Rashi, as the Shailas Lechem is given L'Tzerech U'Kohayin, when the Jewish people asked for bread, it was necessary and it was the correct thing to ask for. A person can't live without bread. In other words, on Nigla de Teda, if a person does not have Nigla, which means halacha, to know the actions that they must do, and the actions that they must not do, you can't survive. Everybody needs bread, right? How do they say it in Russian? Chleb. You have to have chleb, right? And there's a great pun in Yiddish. Chleb means I'm alive. In Russian, chleb means bread, and in Yiddish, chleb means ich leb, I'm alive. In order for the nigel to be as it must be, you have to have a neshama of Teda. The bread that they were eating came from heaven, so the nigla has a shtickle chasidus. Next column at the top, obed. However, perfect. The shilas haboster is given shalei, the bread they needed, and the bread came with a holiness, with the spiritualities that came from heaven. But the meat they didn't need. Or mitzat tzvei time, 2 reasons. Aleph, shahar behemoths hayolhem, they already had plenty of animals, they could have eaten meat from their own livestock. And the Rebbe has a whole explanation that the idea of their own livestock would have meant that they're interested in taivas. Okay, now scoot down to bays, scoot down, bottom of the column. There we go, bays, va'oid. In addition to the fact that they had their own meat, which meant that the desire for meat was chumrius and not edel, is efshel lahem b'lei basa. You don't have to have meat. Bread's enough. Bread's sufficient. To be alive, it's enough to have bread. Or to say it in other words, to be a yid, it's enough to have nigla de Teda. You don't have to have chassidus, you have to have the neshama of Teda. And they wanted to have dafka the neshama. And the Rebbe explained, Zayin digdan farmat on Teda. The Teda had not yet been given. Is a nid given ken hechrich. There was no absolute necessity, megala zayin dechem de genuza, to reveal the Eibush's secret treasure. Havana vasaga pnimis Teda, to actually intellectually understand chassidus. Noch, man, moreover, Vibal, this is given for them bitla gezeh. There was a decree at that point that separated the higher levels from the lower levels. It was impossible for them to affect their chibur, the union. Turn to the next page, page 171. For an elyon v'tachtet, to bring together the higher world and the lower world, the chassidus should come down to human understanding. Okay, so they didn't need previous Teda. Number one, nigel Tedas enough. They had meat of their own. And number two, nigel Teda was enough. They did not have to have nista Teda because of the format on Teda. Okay. Al Pisa Kumtai, skip the bracket. Okay, 3rd paragraph, page 171. According to this, is understood as the Inyan Aslav, when the Eibush gave them slav, which was rich meat, which represents chassidus, pnimius hatera. Arab talking to b'chin Hashem Shabbateda and Basa Basaga, bringing down chassidus to a level of human understanding, is damol given fabudim at ein shayirida, was considered a bad thing, a yirida. Next paragraph, Machon LiYahadus Sicha Teda, once the Teda was given, or befrat noch in Gili Arizal, after the Arizal came along and said that nowadays it's a mitzvah mutter legal, it's a chacham, it's a mitzvah to reveal pnimius hatera. Or more specifically, when Chassidus was revealed, the secrets of the Teda were given to the Jewish people in an Eifen in such a fashion as anybody who wants can understand them using his own mind. So the Rebbe's Vart is as today, it's not enough to have bread. Today you have to have meat. Why? Because meat, you have to have it. Then, before the Teda was given, bread was enough. There was no need for the meat. The bread alone was enough. Okay? Turn to page 172. And we're going to finish the end, the last page. Here we go. However, later generations. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying is, they needed bread. They didn't need slav. They needed food, nigla, halacha. They didn't need timis hatayra, and asking for it was inappropriate. But nowadays, in shpeta dekaderes and later generations, or befrade, they say especially our generations, the ikvas of the Mashiach, the heel of Mashiach, is the shailas basa kehegen ukehegen. Today to ask for meat. In other words, today to ask for the pleasure of learning Teda is absolutely appropriate. For Adrabah, to be sure, dafka duchifutam anasecha chut. You have to reveal the secrets of the Teda all the way to the outside. The mayones shabbateda is asima dam al Mashiach. By revealing the secret of Teda, Mashiach comes. Ublashein haraya mehen, and the words of the Zayr, which are quoted in Tanya, b'hai chibura delach. With your book, which is the Sefer Hazayar, Yifkun Bey Mingalusa Barachva, the Yidden are going to go out of the ghost with Ahava, with Rachmanis. Anyway, that's the Sicha that I wanted to teach you. You see what I did, right? I gave you a long introduction, short Sicha. What's the Teichen of the Sicha? The Teichen of the Sicha is that even though Api Halach, Api Nigla, Api Pshat, the bread was good and the meat was bad. Al pi Chasidus, the bread was good and the meat was better. Why was it considered shaloi gehoigen? Because under those conditions, they didn't need Pnimius HaTeira. Today we do. And let me just make an advertisement. Mitzvah Hashem, next Wednesday, we're going to learn again, and I'm going to be going on to the next parsha. That's my plan. I may do Tzintenes Haman. There's one other thing left. The fact that a jug of man was put aside and kept for posterity. I want to think about that. And if I don't do that, then we're going to do the Be'er Shalmidim. Right? The next parsha is they came to a place called Refidim, and they had no water, and they hit the rock, and so on and so forth. Okay? Questions and comments?
Thank you very much.
So it was clear? Was it helpful or very repetitive? The truth.
Very clear.
Helpful?
Yes.
Okay, I'll see you in a week.
I have a question,
At
but
your own
from
risk.
the beginning.
I just want to say to everybody here before you speak, Kabbalah's Hateira B'Simcha B'Pnimius are happy and successful. Shavuos, your cheesecake should taste good and it should be gluten-free. I don't know what gluten-free means, but whatever makes you happy. Okay, go ahead. Talk to me.
About like the idea of freedom, that you, like having own mastery in what you do. So like we have Torah and we have we know what's the right thing to do. But some people will say that freedom is like doing whatever they want.
Right.
They have like
I understand.
that idea of like doing whatever they want. That's like a negative thing.
Yeah, I know. So when a person says, I want to do whatever I want, and today they say, what do I want to do? I want to take alcohol or drugs. And tomorrow they're abusing alcohol or drugs. And you say to them, this is not good. He says, no, I could stop. I just don't want to. And the day after that, they say, I want to stop, but I can't. How free are they at that point? Well, you could say that. Any person can say, in the Western world, freedom means don't tell me what to do. That's what the Western world freedom means. You telling me what to do is the opposite of freedom. And the Rebbe used to give the mashal of drilling a hole under your spot on the boat. We live in a society, Natalie, where people are richer than they ever were. Richer than they ever were. They have so much technology, so much opportunity, and they're not happy. You know why they're not happy? Because they're slaves. They're slaves to this. They're slaves to 1,000 things. They just don't call it slavery. In America, the Rebbe used to say that America's trademark is mind your own business. I won't tell you what to do, and you won't tell me what to do. And it's not freedom at all. It's called freedom. If a person has the right to hurt himself, and he hurts himself, that's free. That's a slave. It's a slave to stupidity. You understand? When people use what the Eibishter gave them in a way that underappreciates and undervalues and underutilizes what Hashem is giving, and you ask them, why are you wasting? And their answer is, because I'm rich and I could afford it. That's a slavery. It's a slavery to stupidity, to superficiality. You understand? So now, I'm not having a debate with the whole America, and I'm not having a debate, but I'm teaching you. And this is what we talk about. I talk about this a lot. This is a very big thing for me. The idea that freedom means that I own me. Not that you don't own me, but that I own me. If you don't own me and I don't own me, I'm a slave. But because no one's hitting me, I call myself free. But the fact that I have impulses, desires, and I can't control myself, and I can't stop myself, or I have anxiety, or I have fears, or I have depression, those are slavery. To become free from those things, you don't become free from those things by sitting on a couch. Freedom has a cost. You follow? Huh? Okay. Okay, be good. Don't make no trouble, huh? Indeed, if you give a bad report, I'm going to take it personally.